All right, so we are here to continue our class of the Gospel According with Mediumship. We are reading the Gospel According with Mediumship by Allan Kardec. And today we are going to start on chapter 23 from the Gospel According with Spiritism. Everybody's welcome to join us. If people are watching at home, would like to join us, is for free. Just contact me through my page, Revenant, on Facebook, or my website, revenant.org, and we can add you to our group. We meet every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and everybody's welcome. So we are going to do our initial prayer, and we are going to start reading. Dear God, the spirits of the light, our spiritual guides, thank you for this day, for the opportunity to be here together, reading the Gospel according with Spiritism and learning from you, from the Jesus wisdoms, Jesus teachings, and also wisdom from the spirits that you sent to clarify and to help us to move forward in our understanding of life and the spiritual world, and helping us in our spiritual development. Please help us to understand the things we need to learn, and to help us in our process of developing ourselves and humanity. Thank you very much. Amen. All right, so we share our readings. Whoever would like to join, in terms of reading each part of each class, or the whole class, everybody's welcome. So who would like to start?
I can give it a go, I don't mind.
Thank you. So chapter 23, Strange Morals.
Hate the parents, abandon father, mother, and children, leave to the dead the care of burying their dead. I have not come to bring peace, but dissension. Hate the parents. 1. And there went great multitudes with him, and he turned and said unto them, If any man come to me, and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. And whosoever doth not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. So likewise, whosoever he be of you that forsaketh not all of that he hath, you cannot be my disciple. Luke 14, 25, 27, and 33. He that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and he that loveth son and daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Matthew 10, 37. Very occasionally, certain words attributed to Christ make singular contrast to his habitual manner of speaking, so much so that we instinctively repel their literal sense without causing the sublimity of his doctrine to suffer damage. Written after his death, since none of the evangelists wrote while he was still alive, it is licit to believe that in cases like these, the depths of his thoughts were not expressed, or which is no less possible, the original sense, while having been passed from one language to another, has consequently suffered some alteration. It is sufficient that a small error be committed but once, for those who copy to continue to repeat it, as frequently happens in the relating of historical facts. The term hate in the phrase from Luke, if any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children, should be understood by the light of this hypothesis. It would not occur to anyone to attribute these words to Jesus. So then it would be superfluous to discuss it, or even less to try to justify it. For this, it would be necessary first to know if he pronounced them, and if he had, whether in the idiom in which they were expressed, the word in question had the same meaning as it does in our language. In this passage from John, he who hates his life in this world will conserve himself for the eternal life. There is no doubt that Jesus did not attach the same meaning as we do to these words. The Hebraic language was not rich in expressions and contained many words which had varied meanings. Such as one, for example, is that in Genesis used to describe the phases of creation. It also serves simultaneously to express a given period of a time and a period of a day. Later on, from this situation came the translation into the term a day and the belief that the world was created in a period that lasted 6 times 24 hours. In other words, the word used to designate both camel and a rope, since the ropes were made of camel hair. This is why they translated the word into the term camel in the allegory of the eye of the needle, chapter 6, item 2. Furthermore, it behoves us to pay attention to the customs and character of the various peoples which have very great influence over the particular nature of their language. Without this knowledge, true meanings of certain words frequently escape us. The same term, when passed from one language to another, may gain either more or less strength. In one, it may involve insult and blasphemy, while in another, it may totally lack importance, according to the idea it provokes. Even in the same language, some words lose their value with time. For this reason, a rigorously literal translation does not always express the thought exactly. And so in order to maintain this exactitude, it is sometimes necessary to use other equivalents rather than corresponding terms or even paraphrases. These comments will be found especially applicable in the interpretation of the Blessed Scriptures, and in particular those of the Gospels. If the nature of the environment in which Jesus lived is not taken into account, we shall be exposed to misunderstandings as to meaning of certain expressions and certain facts, as a consequence of the habit we have of likening others to ourselves. In any case, it behoves us to divest the term hate of its modern meaning, as this is contrary to the true message of the teaching of Jesus. See also chapter 14, item 5, and subsequent items. Should I stop here?
Let's continue because it's going to clarify and then we comment afterwards.
Abandon father, mother, and children. And everyone that hath forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and shall inherit an everlasting life. Matthew 19:29. Oh, I'm not going to read the bottom page. Should I?
The footnote.
Yeah, the footnote.
I think somehow.
Should I read it?
Yeah,
I can.
Okay. Further.
It explains what was said when they were referring to. This is why they translated the word into the term camel and in the allegory of the eye of the needle. Okay, so nonadit in Latin, kai or misei in Greek do not mean hate, but rather to love less. What the Greek verb misei indicates is expressed even better by the Hebrew verb, which would have been used by Jesus. This verb does not only signify hate, but also to love less, to not love as much, or to not love the same as someone else. In the Syrian dialect, which is said was used more frequently by Jesus, this meaning is even better accentuated. It is in the sense that Genesis chapter 29, 30, and 31 says, "And Jacob loved Rachel more than Leah, and Jehovah, seeing that Leah was hated, it is evident that true meaning here was loved less." This is how it should be translated. In many other passages in Hebrew and all, and above all in Syrian, the same verb is used in the sense to not love as much as another, which makes it contradictory to translate it into hate than having another clearly defined meaning. The text of Matthew, however, puts the matter quite clearly. Note by Mr. Pisani in the third edition of the original French. Strange moral. Then Peter said, "Lo, we have left all, and follow thee." And he said unto them, "Verily I say unto you, there is no man that hath left house, or parents, or brethren, or wife, or children, for the kingdom of God's sake, who shall not receive manifold more in this present time, and in the world to come life everlasting." Luke 18, 28, 36. And another said, "Lord, I will follow thee, but let me first go bid them farewell, which are at home in my house." And Jesus said unto them, "No man having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom of God." Luke 9, 61 and 62. Here, without arguing words, we should look for the thought behind them, which quite evidently was, the interests of the future life should take precedence over all the interests and human considerations. This thought is in accordance with the substance of the doctrine as taught by Jesus, whereas the idea of renouncing one's family would be frankly denial of this teaching. Would you guys mind just turning off the microphone, because I'm I'm a bit distracted by the echoes and stuff. Thank you so much. Moreover, do we not have these maxims in mind when we consider the sacrifice of our interests and family affections for those of our homeland? Do we, by chance, censure those who leave their parents, brothers and sisters, wives and children in order to fight for their country? On the contrary, do they not gain in merit for having given up their homes and families in order to fulfill their duty? This, then, is because there are some duties which are greater than others. Does not the law impose that the daughter leave her parents in order to follow her husband? The world is full of thousands of cases in which painful separation is necessary. Nevertheless, affections are not broken because of this. These temporary separations do not diminish either the respect or the solicitude that children owe to their parents, nor the affection of these parents for their children. Therefore, we see that even if we take these words literally, with the exception of the word hate, they would not be a contradiction of the commandment which would prescribe that man honors his father and mother, not that of parental affections, and would certainly not be if they were understood in the spiritual meaning. These words have had the finality then of showing through overstatement how imperious is the duty of occupying oneself with the future life. Besides, they would have been less shocking for a people of an epoch in which, as a consequence of their customs, family ties were not so strong as they are within a society which is morally more advanced. These ties, always weak in primitive peoples, fortified themselves with the development and sensitivity of a sense of morality. Nevertheless, separation is necessary for progress. It is without it, families and races would become degenerate if they were no intermingling of different strains. This is the law of nature, and is as much in the interests of moral progress as it is for physical progress. Here, things are considered purely from the earthly point of view. Spiritism makes us look higher by showing us that the real ties of affection are not of the flesh but of the spirit, and that these ties do not break with separation, nor even through the death of the physical body. In fact, they become more robust in the spiritual life by means of cleansing the spirit. This knowledge is a consoling truth from which great strength can be gained by all beings to help them support the vicissitudes of life. See Chapter 4, Item 18, and Chapter 14, Item 8. Should I stop here?
Sandra, I have a question or a comment.
Okay.
It says back here that it was talking about primitive people having, or that it's less evident to have familial ties in primitive peoples. I disagree with that.
Yeah, me
That
too.
doesn't make sense to me. I find they have stronger ties, if anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but again, what we know about primitive people, like indigenous are not primitive people. They are not primitive people.
Well, I don't necessarily just mean indigenous. I mean like any like native group or like an island tribe or anything like that. I find that they, from what I've learned, they all have very strong family ties.
Yeah, but we don't know. We don't know. They are not primitive people either. Like what the image we have about primitive people is not civilized. Is not people that use cell phones or whatever. Or everything that
Right.
we associate with civilization nowadays. But this is not what they mean. So everybody that lives in this time, doesn't matter which culture, which lifestyle, if they are a tribe, if they are, United States, if they are in China, if they are, doesn't matter, in Africa, doesn't matter. Everybody that lives in our time is not primitive. So this classification that we have, the civilization has, is much more related to prejudice than the reality. That what they are talking about is all of us when we lived back then. Primitive people is like we came from a lineage, and this is like also proven by science. Like we come from a lineage of evolution, right? So in this evolution, we have read in other chapters, this evolution doesn't encompasses only the physical body or the transformation of biology. It encompasses the evolution of the soul and the spirit as well. So when they are talking about primitive people, it's nothing to do with Indians or tribes or people that are not civilized. They are talking about us, all of us, humanity, way back then, we see even throughout history, we see different kinds of attachment. Is of course they are able to love, they are able to have an emotional attachment, but it was different than now. Like as we progress, we have refined our morals. Not that we are perfect. No, we are really far from be perfect, but we have different codes of morals that they didn't have back then. Like before, like was not illegal to have sex with your own kids, to enslave, to sell, to give your kids as a slave, or to get there was different kinds of attachment. It's like more related to the physical world, the survival, than the spiritual moral codes. So again, we need to separate their language, what they call with what we call in our society. So
Okay.
everything we see now is not primitive. Even the tribes that live in the jungle that have never have a contact with civilization,
Right.
they have evolved spiritually, the same as us. They just have different, different cultures, different lifestyle, but they have evolved the same way as we did. And in that regard, I agree with you. They have a better connection with nature. They have a better respect with nature. In some ways, they are even more evolved than the civilized society, yes. But they are not the primitive people they are talking about.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Any other comments?
I guess I do. I have always had a problem with, I didn't understand why you're supposed to like forget your parents and go. Now this explains it a little bit better. It's not like you're having to just break your bonds with your parents in order to follow God.
Yeah.
So, okay, that makes a little bit more sense. You still have that love. It just, what is it exactly? I guess you just separate like a wife would get married, separate from the parents, but it's not like the bond is broken.
Yeah. It's just a natural course of things, right? Like, well, let's say the ones who have kids or have cousins or nephews and nieces know that the kids progress, right? They become more and more independent, right? Doesn't mean they are not our kids or not our family, they love less or more. It's just natural progression of things, right? When kids grow up, they go to college, and after a while they go live by themselves, or they get married, or whatever. They make their own money, they pay their own bills. So, and it's a different relationship. It's not that they love less or we love less or more. It's just a natural thing. And the same thing is what they're talking about. So we need to prioritize, even in our own relationship with our family, we need to prioritize the spiritual connection. Because otherwise it becomes very shallow and we lose the focus of our existence here. We are, I don't know if you guys notice, sometimes people have different perspectives in terms of, some people are more, if they never left their network, their family network, they are always very close, even if they live in other homes, but they are always close to their hometowns and their family. They have sometimes, not always, but they tend to have less empathy for other people. They tend to have less ability to understand other ways of thinking, other ways of living. And that's what they are talking about. We are all a family as humanity, and our lives is much bigger than our ties as a blood. And if we don't understand that, as we progress spiritually, we understand that, and we are going to be able to love our family, but also love our neighbors, love a stranger, a homeless, and people that we never seen, and pray for them the same way, kind of, right? Because we understand that our bond is spiritual. It's not depending on blood. So that's what they're talking about. That makes sense?
It does, yeah. I like it much better.
And again, right, they explained very well, and I hope we made clear, everybody understood clearly that the translation in which they use the word hate is not a good translation. So the original Hebrew is a word that means love less, not hate. Because Jesus would never say for us to hate someone, never. Because it's a contradiction for his own teachings, right?
Right. Yeah.
And even less to hate our family, he would never say that, right? So it's love less because of all that, better understanding that widening of our awareness that we are a big family in the universe, and our lives here in this planet, our families, our reality here in our physical life is just a little part of it, but we need to keep the big picture in mind and not be so attached, because this attachment to different sectors, even family traditions or religious tradition, cultural traditions, that's the source of war, the source of all sorts of messy stuff that we see in the world, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So our religion is better than theirs, our culture is better than that, our race is better than theirs, like, right? This is the source of rivalries and all sorts of problems that we have in our society for a long time. And so if we widen our understanding and our awareness to see that, okay, we have our blood family, we have people that we learn how to love from childhood, but in fact our life is much beyond that, and our bonds is with universe, then we understand that this love is much bigger, and we should not love those people more than everybody else, or this whole concept and this whole possibilities of everything else that we are attached. And sometimes there I like, if you guys are interested in future to read the spirits book. In the spirits book they say that they explain much further this kind of concept, that sometimes we encounter people that are strangers, that we come across through I don't know, for different reasons, and they have been our family in other incarnations, and sometimes we feel that empathy, we don't know why, we feel that attraction, and sometimes we develop a friendship or not, but we encounter our families all the time, and it's not like our existence here in this reality is just a little piece of our whole life as a spirit. So that's what they are talking about. Any other question or comments? All right, so let's move on. Leave to the dead the care of burying the dead. Anybody else would like to read? Okay, Darcy, go ahead. Thank you.
Leave to the dead the care of burying their dead. Number 7, and he said unto another, follow me. But he said, Lord, suffer me first to go and bury my father. Jesus said unto him, let the dead bury their dead, but go thou and preach thy kingdom of God. Luke 9:59 and 60. 8, what can the words leave to the dead the care of burying their dead mean? The previous considerations show primarily that in the circumstances in which they were preferred, they could not have contained a censure for the one who considered it to be a devotional duty of children to bury their father. Therefore, we have a more profound meaning here, which can only be perceived with a more complete knowledge of spiritual life. Life in the spiritual world is in effect the real life, the normal life of the spirit. Terrestrial existence, being transitory and passing, is a kind of death when compared to the splendors and activity of the spiritual life. The body is nothing more than a gross covering which temporarily clothes the spirit. It is a true fetter which secures it to the soil and from which the spirit feels happy to be liberated. The respect given to the dead is not inspired by matter, but is due to the remembrance that the absent spirit imbues. It is similar to someone who bestows an object which belonged to them and which they handled, that is kept by those who had affection for the person as a remembrance. This is what the man could not understand for himself. Jesus taught him by saying, do not worry about the body, but think first of the spirit, and go and teach about God's kingdom. Go and tell men that their homeland is not to be found upon the earth, but in heaven, because the true life only exists there. I have not come to bring peace, but dissension. 9. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I am come not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and the daughter against her mother, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's foes shall be they of his own household. Matthew 10:34-36. 10. I am come to send fire on the earth, and what will it be if it all be already kindled? But I have a baptism to be baptized with, and how am I straitened till it be accomplished? Suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth. I tell you, nay, but rather division, for from henceforth there shall be 5 in one house divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. The father shall be divided against the son, and the son against the father, the mother against the daughter, and the daughter against the mother, the mother-in-law against her daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. Luke 12:49-53. 11. Could it really be that Jesus, the personification of gentleness and goodness, who never ceases to preach the need to love our neighbors, could have said, I could not to bring peace, but the sword, to separate the son from the father, the husband from his wife. I am come to set fire to the earth, and am in a hurry for this to happen. Are not these words in flagrant contradiction to his teaching? Is it not blasphemy to attribute to him the language of a bloody and devastating conqueror? No, there is no blasphemy nor contradiction in these words, because it was he who pronounced them, and they are testimony to his great wisdom. It is only that they are a little ambiguous, and the form does not express the thought with exactitude, thus giving rise to misunderstanding as to their true meaning. Taken literally, they have a tendency to transform his mission, which was all peaceful, into one of perturbation and discord, which is absurd, and good sense repels this, seeing that Jesus could not contradict himself. See chapter 19, item 6. 12. Every new idea inevitably encounters opposition, and there is not one which is implanted without a fight. Well, in these cases, the resistance is always in proportion to the importance of the foreseen results, because the greater these are, the more numerous are the interests which are affected. If it is notoriously false, if it is taken as inconsequential, then no one becomes alarmed. Everyone lets it go, being certain that it lacks vitality. If, however, it is true, if it is placed on a solid base, it appears to have a future, then a secret presentiment alerts its antagonist to the fact that it constitutes a danger for them, and that to the order of things to whose maintenance they are pledged, they then throw themselves against it and its adepts. So we can measure the importance and the results of a new idea by the amount of emotion its appearance causes, by the violence of the opposition it provokes, as well as by the degree and persistence of the anger of its adversaries. 13. Jesus came to proclaim a doctrine which would undermine the very base of the abuses upon which the Pharisees, the scribes, and the priests all lived. Accordingly, they sacrificed him, believing that by killing the man, they would kill the idea. Nevertheless, this idea survived because it was the truth. It has augmented itself because it corresponds to God's design, and although born in a small and obscure hamlet in Judea, it went and planted its standard in the very capital of the pagan world, right in the face of its fiercest enemies, those who had the greatest interest in combating it because it was subverting centuries-old beliefs to which they were attached, much more for personal interest than from conviction. Terrible battles awaited there for the apostles. The victims were innumerable. However, the idea always grew and triumphed because, being the truth, it rose above those which preceded. 14. It is worth noting that Christianity sprang up when paganism had already entered into a decline and was struggling against the light of reason. It was practiced only as a matter of form. As faith had disappeared, only personal interest had sustained it. Now those who were moved by interest are persistent and never give away to evidence. They become more and more irritated as the counter arguments become more decisive and demonstrate more clearly their beliefs. These people know very well they are wrong. This does not deter them, as true faith is not yet a part of their soul. What they most fear is the light which will give sight to those who are blind. The errors are to their advantage, so they hold onto them and give battle. Did not Socrates also teach a doctrine very similar to that of Christ? Why then did it not prevail amongst one of the most intelligent peoples upon the planet at that time? This was because the time was not yet right. He sowed on land that had not been plowed. Paganism was still not worn out. Christ received his mission at the propitious moment. It is true that a great deal was still lacking for mankind of that epoch to enable them to reach the level of Christian ideas. But there was a general aptitude amongst them which permitted the assimilation of this knowledge because of the beginning of a sense of emptiness which the common beliefs did nothing to fill. Socrates and Plato opened up the way and prepared the spirits of the people. See the introduction, item 4, Socrates and Plato, the forerunners of Christian ideas and Spiritism. Okay. 15. Unfortunately, the adepts of the new doctrine were unable to agree as to the interpretation of the words of Jesus, whose meaning was frequently hidden by allegory and figures of speech. Because of this, the numerous sects were quick to flourish, each claiming to possess the exclusive truth, and even 18 centuries had not been sufficient for them to come to an agreement. Forgetting the most important of the divine precepts which Jesus had placed as the cornerstone of his edifice as an express condition for salvation, namely charity, fraternity, and love for one's neighbors, these sects launched curses at each other and cast themselves one upon the other, the strongest crushing the weakest, drowning themselves in blood and annihilating themselves by torture and fire. After having countered, guys, I'm going to have to stop. I've got someone at the door. Okay, sorry.
Who'd like to take over?
I can take over.
If you want to come back to the 15.
Yeah, 15. Okay, unfortunately, should I just start over?
Yes.
Unfortunately, the adepts of the new doctrine were unable to agree as to the interpretation of the words of Jesus, whose meaning was frequently hidden by allegory and figures of speech. Because of this, numerous sects were quick to flourish, each claiming to possess the exclusive truth, and even 18 centuries had not been sufficient for them to come to an agreement. Forgetting the most important of the divine precepts which Jesus placed as the cornerstone of his edifice, as an express condition for salvation, namely charity, fraternity, and love for one's neighbor, those sects launched curses at each other and cast themselves one upon the other, the strongest crushing the weakest, drowning themselves in blood and annihilating themselves by torture and fire. After having conquered paganism, these Christians who had been the persecuted became the persecutors. Fire and steel were used to implant the cross of the shepherd, despite its being unblemished in both worlds. It is a confirmed fact that religious wars have been the most cruel and produced more victims than all the political wars put together. In no other warfare are so many acts of atrocity or barbarism practiced. Is this the fault of the Christian doctrine? Certainly not, as this formally condemns all violence. Did Jesus ever tell his disciples to go and kill or commit massacres or burn those who did not believe? No. On the contrary, he always said that all men are brothers, that God is supremely merciful, that we must love our neighbors and our enemies and do good to those who persecute us. He also said that all those who kill by the sword will perish by the sword. Therefore, the responsibility does not lie with the doctrine of Jesus, but rather with those who have falsely interpreted it and turned it into an instrument for the satisfaction of their own passions. It belongs to those who have despised these words. My kingdom is not of this world. In his profound wisdom, Jesus had foreseen these happenings, but these things were inevitable because they are inherent in the inferior nature of man, which cannot be transformed suddenly. It was necessary for Christianity to go through this long and cruel test during all these centuries in order to show its strength, seeing that despite all the evil committed in its name, it has remained pure and uncontaminated. This has never been disputed. The blame has always fallen upon those who have abused it. At every act of intolerance, it has always been said that if Christianity were better understood and more widely practiced, this would never have happened. When Jesus declared, "Think not that I come to bring peace on earth, but a sword," the thought behind this statement was as follows. Do not believe that my doctrine will establish itself pacifically, because it will bring bloody battles wherein my name will be used as a pretext, because mankind will not have understood me or will not have wanted to understand. Brothers and sisters, separated by their respective beliefs, will unsheath their swords one against the other, and division will reign within the breast of families whose members do not share the same beliefs. I have come to launch fire upon the earth so as to purge it of errors and prejudices, just as you put fire to a field in order to destroy the weeds. And I am in a hurry for the fire to start so the purification may be that much quicker. Seeking that truth will come forth triumphantly from this conflict. War will be succeeded by peace, hate between two parties by universal brotherhood, the darkness of fanaticism by the clarity of enlightened faith. Then, when the field is prepared, I will send a comforter, the Spirit of truth, which will reestablish all things. This is to say that by understanding the meaning of my words, the more enlightened people will finally comprehend and so put an end to the killing of brother by brother, which has disunited all the children of the same Father. Finally, then, being tired of combat, which has brought no result, only desolation and perturbation, even into the hearts of families, man will recognize where his true interests lie in relation to this world and the next. He will see on which side are to be found the friends or enemies of his tranquility. then all will put themselves under the same banner, which is that of charity, and all things will reestablish themselves on earth in accordance with truth and the principles which I have taught. 17. Spiritism has come at the appointed time to realize the promises made by Christ. However, this cannot be done without first destroying all abuse. Just as happened with Jesus, Spiritism is faced with pride, selfishness, ambition, greed, and blind fanaticism, which, when taken to their last defenses, try to block the pathway, causing hindrance and persecutions. Therefore, it too has to do battle. But the time of battles and bloody outrages is passing, so that those to be suffered from now on will be of a moral nature, and even these are nearing the end. The first lasted for centuries, but these will last but a few years, because instead of breaking forth in only one place at a time, the light now shines from all points of the globe and will quickly open the eyes of those who are blind. 18. These words of Jesus should be understood as referring to the wrath which his doctrine will provoke, the momentary conflicts which it will create, and to the fights he will have to endure before it is established, just as happened to the Hebrews before they entered into the promised land. It should not be understood as inferring a predetermined design on his part to sow disorder and conflict. Evil comes from man, never from Jesus. He was like the doctor who comes to cure, but whose medicine provokes a beneficial crisis in those who are sick.
Any comments or questions? No? Everybody understood? What you understood?
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm pretty new at this, and then I just saw the movie a couple of days ago, so I'm just still really like confused. And why is he talking about Jesus so much in this book?
In this book? Because Spiritism is started in France. In France, it started in different countries, but Allan Kardec was French, right? And at that time in the 1800s, there was like a huge persecution from Christians towards the Spiritists, the people that were sharing their experiences with spirits. They were hearing, tapping, and all that, and also people that are like understanding the gospel in a different way. So the other religions care less about what was going on. You know, they didn't persecute the spiritists. So they needed to address that with the Christians, including like there's a lot of things done even in court. Here in America, there was a huge movement of scientists and law people that was somehow involved with the Spiritism and spiritualism to enable these spiritists and spiritualists to be able to work, because they were being killed.
Wow.
And persecuted. And so, and also there is, those books, all those books are written to explain, listen, Spiritism and spiritualism are not contrary to Christianism.
Yeah.
It's just a continuation, it's a development. Is that now we can understand better what Jesus have come to teach us. And in the Book of Spirits, they mention very clearly as well that not many different religions have the same value. and they bring the same teachings, and they are as the same. They have the same value as Christianity. So it's not that they are saying that Christianity is the only religion. No, it's the opposite. But they needed to address, to clarify, that spiritualism and Spiritism is not opposite to Christianity, because they were the ones who, till this day, they still persecute and they still misunderstand the Spiritists and Spiritualists.
Yeah, it was pretty bold in that time to talk about these things. I can't believe it, because even today you talk about mediumship or spirits or moving a table by energy, and people don't even want to look at you or don't talk about it. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, here I moved to California and live in Orange County, which is extremely conservative, and and a lot of that, hardcore, bigotry and etc. etc. And they absolutely don't understand, and they don't accept this kind of stuff. So it's still that kind of same thing as witches, persecution of the witches in the Middle East.
But it did work. We tried to move a table, and I guarantee it worked. Darcy, I think, was there too. I don't know if you were there, Darcy.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, we move a table by just like doing nothing, just barely touching it. It was crazy.
I know, spirit is real, and our communication with spirit is real. It's just because it's part of life.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, like when we open ourselves to understand the world and embrace science the way they are, all those dogmatisms fall apart.
Yeah.
And there's no need to make that antagonism between science and religion, between the different religions, which religion is better than others. This is all man-made. It doesn't come from God,
Yeah.
right? It's all man-made for political reasons, for repression, to control, but it has nothing to do with any religion, any.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
I just watched a film. Well, I belong to kind of a community. It's called Unity, and the filmmaker is making this movie called Living with Ghosts, and it was all about it started kind of like almost from a skeptical point of view, but then showing how, this is what all these religions and Christianity is saying about it, but think about thought control. Think about all this. This is really like, is there anything else that has been like really beneficial to some healing that has been told not to? Is there anything else that it's really been shown that has helped healing a grieving person to connect? But anything else similar to that? I mean, that it's almost, it was talking about, it was like thought control to make someone feel bad that they want to pursue this. And it was interesting. I liked the movie. So.
Absolutely, yes. There's so many things nowadays that I'm loving all those documentaries, the movies, and all these things. And although in the beginning, in 1800s, there was much more science going on in that regard than nowadays, which was fabulous, and that we need to go back to that. But still, there's a lot of buzz, and helps people to understand, to be more familiar and to break those myths, because a lot of people that is against mediumship or spiritism, they don't know anything about it. Period. It's just pure prejudice based on whatever dogmas and things that they heard, but they don't really know what it is. And including this kind of stuff, those scriptures and the explanations, the understanding of what it is, what it really is, this whole thing about mediumship and spiritualism and spiritism, that is absolutely sublime. And helps us to unite, help us to heal. It doesn't have any religious agenda, doesn't have any, it doesn't instigate antagonism or anything, or prejudice. So Catherine and and Darcy has their hands up. So questions or comments?
Comments. So, well, first of all, Sandra, I think you should be considering moving to Palo Alto.
Oh,
Bit more progressive over there.
oh, absolutely. But the weather,
Historically.
I know, it's
Historically, at least.
so expensive though.
There is one I think it's in California. I don't know if you guys ever heard of IONS, Institute of Noetic Sciences. I think it's in California, and it's founded by Edgar Mitchell, which is one of the first astronomers.
Oh.
And they're doing a lot of research. I love to join in and see what kind of research they're up to, because they're doing a lot of research on channeling. They're doing a lot of research on energy healing, on like precognition. They're probably going to start an app to see if mediums or clairvoyant or like people who have precognitive abilities can predict world events before they happen. So that's quite interesting. There is also one Institute of Noetic Science or a similar title in I think it's in Switzerland, and I really wanted to do a PhD or something over there at some point, but I think it's a great plan for somebody who doesn't need to make money. But
I think sharing, yes, there's some stuff going on. In the Stanford University, there's some things going on. The first researches that happened, like really scientific research with technology related to mediumship, was in UCLA, in America, of course, right? There's a lot going on in Europe, back in the 1800s. But in America was one of the most prominent studies was in UCLA. So there is stuff going on, but that's the thing. There's less political interest, less economic interest, right? But yeah, and yeah, thank you for sharing. If you want to share here in the chat, go ahead, because it's all important things for everybody to know. Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah. They have a really great like kind of seminar every Fridays. It's at 11 Pacific and 2 p.m. Eastern. And so they usually share for like about an hour and a half all of their findings. So there's different topics coming up. So sometimes I attend when I'm interested in them. I think this Friday is going to be interesting. They're going to talk about telepathy and stuff like that. So
really cool. Yes.
Yeah,
where is this, Catherine?
It's IONS. I'll share it in the chat. So it's Institute of Noetic Science, and I'm really thrilled by it. But I know what you mean, Sandra. I've been looking at. I think there have been a lot of. I think it's Laura Lynn Jackson, a famous medium, who talked about the double-blind experiments, like quadruple blind experiments, where she didn't know what was put in some box because somebody else put it, and then somebody else put it, so no one had any idea to know what was in that box, and she just figured it out because of Spiritism, so because of mediumship. So yeah, really
cool. There's a lot of cool stuff.
There's also an article that comes out every Friday. I don't know if you guys are aware of. It's called The Afterlife, something or other. You know what? I could try to find it and put it in the chat too.
Yes, thank you.
I think Forever Family Foundation was also very active at some point, but they don't seem to be so active. I was interested in Church of Spiritism. I think there's a few Spiritist church here and there. I think there's like 2 of them in Montreal, but I've never had the guts to actually show up to an event because I don't consider myself a religious person. So
there's a lot of services online. A lot of services online. So you can even go to Facebook and join. There's a lot of pages. Every church has their own page. I mean, a lot of them has, but there's some pages that are for church services. Like put on the header on search for Facebook church services. You're gonna
You
see
could, the Journey Within. The Journey Within is one of them, and they do all online stuff too.
yes. But there's all sorts of different churches all over the world, and it's interesting to join different churches all over the world to see the differences of different styles of mediumship, different styles of even church services, different beliefs and stuff. So it's interesting to have different experiences. Awesome, thank you, Darcy.
Sandra, I just wanted to ask, did you watch that movie Kardec? Like, I'm just curious whether you figure it was an accurate portrayal of his life and what he went through. Because it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think, I don't know if exactly the one you're talking about. I watched one with the same name about his life, like a biography of him. The one I watched is very accurate. Yes, he was a scientist. He was not a spiritual person.
Right.
And that's what is fascinating about those books that from him, because it's very scientific, and it brings a scientific perspective. And nevertheless, he became very spiritual at the end. He started very skeptical, but he started to study the phenomena that were going on in Europe at that time, in France particularly, but he wants to understand what's going on. What is this table tipping? Like, everybody was a fashion at that time, was a fever. Right. Everybody used to gather in each other's house and do table tipping, and that's what Francis was talking about, right? And he wants to understand what's going on. So he was a scientist, and he measured in every single way. He tried explanations, and he gathered with other scientists, and there was no scientific explanation other than an intelligent being behind it. And this intelligent being behind it, invisible, was spirits. And that developed into questions and answers, into the whole communication that we have nowadays. And that based on that, he wrote those books. So, because remember there's a lot of passages when they said the teachings from spirits, right? Is the spirits channeled teaching and saying all those things and helping us to understand the gospel and what the whole thing, that the whole basic guidance that God gave to us to develop ourselves. So it's really fascinating. But he embraced his mission in a really beautiful way, and super dedicated. And he said, towards after a while, he understood that was a hard core, because he could have done other stuff, and he didn't do that to be famous or to make money. He didn't make any money with that, but
lost his career.
I know, but he did because he was, he felt compelled, and he was someone special and was used by spirits to help us all. But so towards the end, after a while, he understood that, okay, I know this path is hard, and whoever propose and or offer themselves to serve spirits cannot expect to gain things. This dedication and this service to spirits needs to come from the understanding that we have to do it because we need to grow. The more we do for others, the more we help each other to grow and to understand life, to understand this whole reality of what is this about, what is life, what is the meaning of life. We all grow. But he understood that he was not supposed to, he faced a lot of persecution himself. He faced a lot of ridicule from other scientists. He suffered a lot. But at the end, he said, at the end of his life, he said, I was prepared for the burden and for the suffering and for all the hardship that this mission was associated with. But at the end, I am really grateful that there's a lot of joy as well. And he said that when we really put our effort and to do our mission to the fullest, to the best of our abilities, we have happiness here and now. We cannot do for happiness, or we cannot do for the interest of happiness, or for the interest of fame or money or anything like that. But if we do with pure heart and responsibility, we nevertheless receive, because we become aligned with the natural laws, the laws of God. And that in itself is happiness. So it was really cool. He is such an inspiring person. I really love it. All right, so let's wrap it up for today. Let's do our final prayers. Dear God, the spirits of the light, our spiritual guides, thank you for this opportunity to be here together, learning from you directly from the wisdoms of spirit. Help us to understand and to apply this in our daily lives, and also to share with others and to spread the light in the world, and spread the healing in our planet. And now we ask our healing guides and our angels to step closer. We ask that you please share your healing with us, helping us to break our limitations, to open our hearts, to open our minds, to more and more to be vibrating in a frequency of God. We ask that you help us to overcome our limitations as human beings, helping us to grow, to be more and more close to what Jesus and all these superior spirits have shown us, has given us an example, and also help us to be. We ask that you help us to spread love, to live in love every moment of our lives. Help us to have wisdom like Jesus, to separate assertiveness and being truthful and being groundbreaking and being courageous, and not being hateful, not being loving. Help us to face our adversities in our lives and our planets in general, and even in our private lives, with love, even when we need to be assertive and somehow set harsh boundaries, because sometimes we need. But help us to have the wisdom to do this with love and in a constructive way that's help us all to grow and to evolve. We now, as we feel this healing love filling up our hearts and all our cells, we share this love with our homes, our families, our pets, our neighbors, going farther and farther to take our whole planet Earth. We envision this healing love taking our whole planet, every single people, the ones that are sick, all over the world. Healing also those who don't have food to eat or water to drink. Healing those who don't have a shelter. Those who are incarcerated. Those who don't have anyone to pray for them. We also share this healing love with our governants so they can work and lead for the common good. We share this healing love with nature, our Mother Earth, helping us to grow and to evolve intellectually, morally, in every capacity to do our part, to reverse the damages we have already imposed in nature as humanity, and also to do the good things, the right things, to maintain afterwards the balance in nature and between humans and nature. We envision this healing light helping us all to live in peace and harmony with each other. All people, all races, all religions, with no distinction, that we can all live as brotherhood, with peace and compassion with each other, coexisting with respect for our differences and honoring our diversity. And now we invite our loved ones to step closer and to also receive this healing that comes from God, because they are also in the process of developing. And with our hearts full of love and gratitude, we ask our guides and angels to continue with us. And as we start to come back, we feel our breathing, our bodies, the environment around us, and when we are ready, we can open our eyes. All right, so that is it for today for the literature group. Those who are watching us from home, everybody's welcome to join us every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. You can contact me through Revenant Facebook page or my website, revenant.world, and I'll be happy to add you to our group. And it's free of charge, and everybody's welcome. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Bye.